official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays, and by Home Hardware, homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Welcome to Rogers Center. Bo Porter and the Houston Astros are in town for a 3-game series, and Bo Porter is in his second season as the skipper of the Houston Astros, and he knows that his situation is one in which you're going to have to be patient. They have the youngest roster in the major leagues, just under 27 years old, and you can see it has been a struggle for Houston over the last 7 seasons.
Well, it certainly has. They've got a lot of young players, a lot of players from other organizations. They traded away all their veterans over the last couple of years, and they're starting over. They've got one of the highest rated, or the highest rated farm system in all of baseball. So it's going to be an upward trend, but right now the young players are finding their way.
Well, Porter says we can't talk about those minor leaguers. That would be disrespectful to the 25 men on this roster. He said we got to make these guys as good as we can. Take a look at the lineup for the Astros. Top of the order, it's the switch hitter Robbie Grossman. He's in left field. You're going to enjoy watching Jose Altuve throughout this series. Jesus Guzman is at first base, and then their catcher is Jason Castro. Last year against the Blue Jays, he had a good season series, going 6 for 18. With a pair of homers and 6 RBIs, and then all the way down in the bottom of the lineup in the 9th spot, the switch hitting shortstop Jonathan Villar, a 5-game hit streak to start his season, including a home run, and they're set to take on Mark Buehrle, and Buehrle has never lost to Houston.
He wanted to get off to a good start in 2014, and boy, did he ever do that against the Tampa Bay Rays. Became 1 out. Came that close to throwing a complete game shutout, 11 punch-outs in that game. Santos and Cecil finished that one up, but if he could have got that last out, he would have become the first Blue Jay starter with a complete game shutout in their first start of the season, the first one ever. He's looking to continue that strong effort here tonight.
Defensively, behind Buehrle in his first start, they were outstanding. Laurie and Diaz had great games in the field. Cabrera, Rasmus, and Bautista from left to right in the outfield. Laurie and Diaz on the left side. Meister Astros is swinging a hot bat, so he gets the start tonight at second. Edwin Encarnacion at first. And Deanna Navarro, who worked very well with Buehrle the first time out down in Tampa Bay.
Blue Jay regulars have committed just 1 error through the first week of the season. That was a throwing error by Jose Bautista. Meister Astros looks great in the field. He's moving better. He looks quicker. Swinging the bat like you said, but defensively he looks great.
Buehrle starts out throwing a first pitch strike to Robbie Grossman, and we are underway. Grossman 2 for 4 against Buehrle in his career, and there's an off-speed pitch. Quickly 0-2.
What's new? Come out throwing strikes. Mark Buehrle established that fastball and used the off-speed stuff.
Tried that cutter that missed the outside edge. Buehrle loves to work quickly. We all know that, and he has really gotten comfortable with Deanna Navarro behind the plate. Breaking ball hit right to Diaz. 2 hopper. 1 down. Well, Mark Buehrle, he has the longest start in the majors this season, 8 2/3, and he used a combination of pitches to shut down the Rays.
Fastball 41%. You add that to the cutter 9%, so half of them were fastballs, and a lot of those were on the corners, inside, outside, and they set up his curveball and his changeup. Again, 11 strikeouts, 8 of them were looking in that first start against Tampa Bay.
Jose Altuve goes after the first pitch, and the diminutive Altuve gets the first hit of the night. Buehrle's trying to get ahead, and Altuve was set for it. He had 283 a year ago in 152 games. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's starting off this season very hot. First pitch, he's not going to wait around for Mark Buehrle to jump ahead. Strike 1. Ready and waiting on that one.
A 1-out single. Altuve is a threat to steal. Had 35 stolen bases a year ago. He's already 3 for 3. Buehrle's got him going back to the bag on the first pitch.
Should be very interesting to watch him, Mark Buehrle versus Altuve. Altuve was thrown out last year 13 times.
Jesus Guzman is the first baseman tonight. Buehrle gives him the old pedestrian move. He's got a better one than that. Mark Buehrle's always tough to run on. He's so quick, so Altuve's going to have his hands full, try to get a read on the lefty.
Yeah, he better not think that was his good move right there.
There's another base hit into center field. Jesus Guzman. It's a first pitch base hit. So back-to-back one-out singles. Well, Burley, he pitched ahead throughout his entire start. Looks like the Astros have picked up on that, and they're anxious to hit tonight.
Very, very anxious. He's swinging early in the count. What he was doing in that Tampa Bay game is he was using his fastball effectively. We all know the Tampa Bay Rays like to work the count, so he's going to have to make the adjustments here if they're coming out swinging against him.
Jason Castro, we mentioned his great season a year ago against the Blue Jays. He went 6 for 18. Just off the outside edge. Castro played 120 games a year ago. He's an all-star and a terrific catcher. Finished up the season with a knee problem and had surgery. On the ground. Astros flips to Diaz, back to first. What a double play! Mark Burley works so quickly, the infielders are on their toes, expecting the ball to be put in play, and Astros takes a hit away from Castro and turns an inning-ending double play. The glove flip to Diaz, and he does the rest. The defense has backed up Burley again. Melky Cabrera off to a great start to the 2014 season. He's got a 7-game hit streak. He's homered in 3 straight games, and he's the table setter at the top of John Gibbons' lineup. 7-game hit streak. He's gone 10 for 31, and there's those 3 homers. They all came against his former team, the New York Yankees, and then down in the cleanup spot. Edwin Encarnacion, he likes seeing the Astros in town. 11 for 20 a year ago with 4 homers and 10 RBIs. Maybe they'll get his bat going a bit. Deanna Navarro, Brett Flory, Rasmus Astros, and Diaz rounded out, and they're set to face Brett Oberholzer.
Second big league season was 4-5 last year with a very good 276 earned run average, 13 appearances, 10 starts in 2013. He has gone at least 5 innings in all of his 11 big league starts.
He gets ahead of Cabrera with a first pitch strike. Interesting splits for Oberholzer. He has been much tougher on right-handed hitters than left. Melky Cabrera is a switch hitter. Oberholzer, for his career, has held righties to a .215 average compared to .292 for left-handed hitters.
Well, he can do a couple of things against right-handers. He likes to throw the fastball on the inner half, and he can get it in there.
This is chopped toward third. Matt Dominguez, a very good defensive third baseman. Let's go back to the inning-ending double play, and boy, the infield has played great.
Yeah, I told you that Astros has been moving much better this year than we saw him last year. He got a great jump there and flips it over to Diaz, and what a return throw, and Mark Burley certainly appreciates the play of his middle infield.
You can see him acknowledging Diaz and Astros for that inning-ending double play. And he got great defense behind him in Tampa Bay against the Rays as well.
I think we wrote 5 or 6 stars down in our scorebook that afternoon.
So Adam Lynn batting second tonight. We mentioned those numbers. Those splits favor left-handed hitters against Oberholzer. So John Gibbons puts Lind in the 2 spot for just the 26th time in his career.
And that was the whole thought process right there. He said that Adam Lind has been better versus right-handers, been swinging the bat this year. There's the shift against Adam Lind. Very deep infield, playing very deep. If he chops one off the plate, he'll be able to beat it out.
He's not thinking about chopping one off the plate, though.
Chopping off one of those seats in right center field right now. You'll see a curveball and a slider also from Olberholsen. He'll pitch inside to the right-handers, but his equalizer to the righties is his changeup.
Boy, he had a good rip. I tell you what, he looks so good at the plate right now. It doesn't make any difference, lefties, righties, against all comers. He's seeing the ball very well. And what he has done, and he talked about it, Kevin Seitzer has had impact on all these hitters, but Lind himself recognized he just wanted to take all the tension out of his setup. Try to be as relaxed as he can right there. Broken bat, looper to left, and Robbie Grossman had to battle the lights, but he hung in there and made the catch. 2 down. Take a look at the outfield. It's Robbie Grossman. Alex Presley was just acquired by the Astros. He's in center. And L.J. Hose, the former Orioles, in right field. Matt Dominguez, terrific fielder at third. Jonathan Villar and Jose Altuve, the double play combination. Jesus Guzman gets the start at first base tonight, and Jason Castro is back behind the plate.
First Astros catcher named to the All-Star game last year since Craig Biggio in 1991. What a drought at catcher, but he's a good one.
Jose Bautista batting with nobody on and 2 outs. Bautista, there's that great changeup, and you can see he was out on that front foot. Bautista has 8 career home runs against the Astros. Remember, he played in the National League for quite a while with Pittsburgh. Outside.
Jose has gotten off to an outstanding start, and it's getting around the league that the power is there. How about how deep the outfield's playing? Look at the left fielder. Grossman, he is almost up against the wall in left field. Center fielder Presley almost to the warning track.
That might not be good enough. Jose Bautista high and deep and gone.
390 feet, that blast to left center field by Jose Bautista. You can go ahead and put the left fielder and the center fielder in the first row, and they still weren't going to catch that one. He is locked in right now. That home run swing is there for Bautista. Watch how he stays back on that ball. I told you he likes to try and throw that fastball in the inner half, and he turned on it.
9th career home run against the Astros has put Mark Burley and the Jays up 1-0. 2 outs for Edwin Encarnacion.
Boy, that's just a pretty swing. You get his hands, his legs. He gets the spin. He gets everything into that swing. Great timing.
Ball on his strike. He had a great spring, and he's carried it right into the first part of the season. Home run number 4 for Bautista. Encarnacion fouls it straight back. We mentioned Edwin had a good run against the Astros last year. He has 9 career home runs in 58 career games against Houston. Off to a bit of a slow start.
Yeah, he should have hit that last pitch, and he knows it. He uppercut on that swing just a little bit, where that front shoulder opened up just a little bit too quickly. It looks like he really wants to hit his first home run of the season. Get that monkey off your back so you can concentrate on hitting more line drives.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Breaking ball pulled foul. I like that pitch. They came inside with the breaking ball after using the fastball inside. Jason Castro set up that pitch very effectively. Generally, when you brush a guy back, you're going away. But Castro backed it up with 2 pitches inside. coming in again. You better be careful. Base hit. Edwin gets off to a start against the Astros.
Starting to come around. 2 hits in his last game. And what I like about this, 2 strikes. Shortens it up a little bit. Stays on top of that high fastball.
No stride at all. He trusts his hands and he gets to it and gets a 2-out base hit. So the Blue Jays with 2 outs get a home run and a single. And Oberholzer gets a visit from his catcher, Jason Castro. Bo Porter, we mentioned he's in his 2nd season as the manager of the Astros. He knows he's got to be patient and just try to get these young guys into the best position possible to win a few games. The youngest roster in the majors. Switch hitting, Deanna Navarro batting right-handed against Oberholzer. You just wonder if somewhere down the road, when the switch hitters for the Blue Jays get a few more bats against Oberholzer, if they might not hit left-handed against him.
Seeing the splits that he has and the success he has against right-handers, not a bad idea.
Up the middle, but there's Altuve on the left side of second. He steps on the bag. The inning is over, but the Blue Jays have jumped out on top. Jose Bautista's dialing up long distance early. His 2-out solo shot, his 4th of the season, gives the Blue Jays a 1-0 lead. Ball gala at Rogers Center in support of the Jays Care Foundation. Over $1 million was raised from this event. The funds raised by Jays Care will help support initiatives for children in need across Canada. For more information how you can get involved and help Jays Care, visit bluejays.com/JaysCare today. It was a great event. All the players were out and a lot of great fans that we see from year to year come out for that great event, and it was a hit. They do a great job, and Jays Care has been very successful. Big Chris Carter, he's the DH tonight, and Mark Burley has jumped ahead 0-2. Chris Carter, big power hitter. Last year he had 212 strikeouts and 29 homers.
You can find the holes in his swing, but if you miss, better be careful.
His 29 home runs were the most by an Astro hitter since Lance Berkman at 29 in 2008. He gets jammed, and this is trouble. It's a fair ball down the right field line. Bautista was shaded over in the gap, and Carter is aboard with a leadoff double. He got jammed by that Burley pitch inside, but fought it off and kept it fair.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky, just fighting off that pitch, and he's able to keep it fair. How many times have you seen a guy swing like this and foul it off or get jammed right back to the pitcher? But he keeps it fair, and he gets himself extra bases.
Well, you can't defend against those flares, and that's what it was. It was a leadoff double flare down the right side. L.J. Hose is the batter. He's the right fielder this evening. Hose is 3 for 10 in the early going. Really missed the outside edge.
Boy, that's close. He was getting that pitch in that last start down in Tampa Bay.
Had a good umpire behind the plate. It was Jim Wolf, who's a very aggressive umpire, likes to call a lot of strikes. There were 8 called strike threes in his 11 strikeout total. And Deanna Navarro had an interesting theory on why Tampa Bay was caught looking so often.
Well, he was with Tampa Bay, and the scouting report when they would face Burley back in those days was, hey, he's got so many pitches, let's eliminate some of the pitches, and if you do that, then we'll try and hit some of the other ones. Well, Navarro picked up that they were really taking the fastball, especially on the inner half to the right-hander, so Deanna said, let's go. They just kept going back and forth to it.
That's just barely foul outside of first, and that's a great point. Why change until the hitters make you change?
And he found out by just paying attention and watching the game that they were sitting on his off-speed stuff. They were looking for the curveball. They were looking for the changeup, so he kept using that fastball to get ahead early. And like you said, 8 of the 11 taken strikes.
2-2 pitch tapped in front of home plate. Navarro out quickly behind the plate. Strong throw. Hose is retired. Carter goes to third on the 2-3 putout. Works effectively as a bunt. Pat Listash is the third base coach. He was a major leaguer for a long time with Milwaukee, and he is the third base coach. This is his first year at third for Houston. Infield is drawn in. Burley gets a lot of ground balls. I think in this situation they'd have to have the ball go through to try to get Carter home.
Yeah, and not a ton of speed over there at third base, and you're playing on turf, so I don't think you have to play the infield all the way in. Blue Jays are playing about halfway, especially on the left side of the infield.
Matt Dominguez. He's 0 for 5 in limited bats against Burley. This stash will come over in between pitches just to remind Carter what his assignment is. Make sure it goes through, more than likely.
Yeah, I'm sure they're playing it through on the infield.
Burley falls behind 3-0.
And that's okay. Dominguez has some power. He's got a couple of home runs already this year. You got a base open. He's definitely pitching around him.
Alex Presley is on deck. He's the lefty hitter. He throws a strike right on the outside corner. Mark Burley doesn't leave too many pitches out over the heart of the plate. There you see Presley standing in the on-deck circle. Fly ball to center. Rasmus backing up. Carter tagging at third. Rasmus, strong throw, but not in time. Right on the money, but Colby was just too deep in center, and the Astros have tied it up. Dominguez picks up the RBI. His third of the season.
Productive at bat right there. Productive run scored by the Houston Astros. A little dump double down the right field line. They advance the runner, score him on a sac fly.
So Alex Presley, the center fielder, will bat with 2 outs. Burley jumps ahead with a fastball. Presley originally signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was an 8th round pick in 2006. He slashes it into left field. A 2-out single. So the Astros playing with a lot of confidence early on. They had a good run against the Yankees in their season opener. They had the Yankees at home. They won 2 of 3 and then lost 3 of 4 to the Angels at home before jumping on a plane and flying north of the border.
It's going to be a better year, I think, for the Astros. Last couple of years have been really rough on them, but the players are starting to get some experience. And the offense is not as bad as you think. They actually, after the first week of the season, lead the American League in home runs. They've hit 10 already.
playing a small ballpark that favors right-handed hitters. Jonathan VR, the switch-hitting shortstop, number 9 hitter. Got a 5-game hit streak. Good-looking player. He came up at the end of the month of June last year and did a good job for them. Had a great finish to his season. Just 22 years old.
Another player that they were able to get from another organization. Got him from the Philly organization. When you start dumping some of your veteran players like the Houston Astros have done over the last couple of years, you have to recognize the other good players, the young players from other organizations.
Big swing and a miss. He was out in front. He's in the hole 0-2. VR took over at shortstop in July. He led all rookies with 18 stolen bases in just 57 games. Don't be surprised if they start the runner at first here. Alex Presley and Burley thinks the same way.
Well, I was watching Louis Rivera, the head of the infield for the Blue Jays, and he was telling Meiser Sturis that exact same thing. I don't think it would be a straight steal because he doesn't have a very big lead over there at first base. But you could watch the delay steal.
High fly ball into right. Bautista gets under it. The inning is over, but Houston has tied it up. A leadoff double comes around to score. It's 1-1, middle of the second. Access to over 100 of the world's best magazines on your tablet. Baseball fans, sign up at nextissue.ca/baseball and get an extended 60-day free trial. 1-1 ball game. Brett Lawrie will start things off. He's batting 6th tonight. Inside with that fastball. Lawrie anxious to get things going a bit at the plate.
He was out here early this afternoon taking some extra batting practice about 2:30 or so. Blue Jays hit extra, optional hitting first game of every series if they want to come out here, and Brett was out here working on trying to go the other way. I think that'd be a good idea against this guy right here.
He is just 3 for 25 in the early going, has an RBI. No extra base hits yet. Had a good cut at that pitch away. How challenging is it for not only young hitters but veteran hitters to avoid getting yourself into a mental slump when you get off to a slow start?
It happens all the time, and it happens to some of the best hitters out there. You just have to keep battling yourself and stay confident. You're going to be okay. You know it's a long season.
Strike 3 call. Lawrie caught looking at that fastball.
Let's take a look at the numbers. The pitch usage for Brett Oberholzer. He'll use his fastball. Look at the changeup. 21% of the time he'll use that against the right-handers and set up his fastball if he has to. Curveball 17% of the time. He's got very good numbers when you look at some of the things that he has done. Again, at least 5 innings in all of his 11 big league starts.
Oberholzer started out his professional career with the Atlanta Braves. Pitched in the Gulf Coast League for the Braves in 2008. He's just 24 years old. But he was part of a big trade. The Braves wanted Michael Bourne from Houston, the center fielder. So Oberholzer and Jordan Schaefer were 2 of the 4 players included in that Braves Astros trade. Took place back in July of 2011.
The other guy, Paul Clemens, was his roommate in Double-A at the time. How about that? Get the phone call, and who do you want to talk to, Skip? Well, actually, I want to talk to both of you.
Both of you. What have we done? Well, you've just gotten traded. Oberholzer grew up in Delaware, close to Philly, and he was a big Michael Bourne fan. And he ends up getting traded for Michael Bourne. He and Paul Clemens have played together in all but one of their 6 professional seasons, and they started out in Atlanta, and now they're in Houston together. Colby Erasmus batting in the 7th spot tonight. 2-2 count. Just off the corner. Blue Jays really haven't swung the bats the way they will. Coming in this game batting just .216 as a team. Meiser Astores is the exception, of course. He's red hot. Off speed pitch fouled.
Well, their approach is good. They just haven't been able to string hits together. They've got one of the highest percentage of runs scored via the home run again this year. So they just haven't been able to put 2, 3, 4 hits together. 54% of the runs that they have scored have come via the home run.
Full count, 1 out. Strike 3 called. Rasmus caught looking. Back-to-back strikeouts, both coming on the fastball. Oberholzer gets righty Laurie and then the lefty Rasmus, both looking.
When you see batters take pitches, fastballs like that are right there, you know they're thinking of something else. They're looking for something off speed. It looked like Colby was looking for that good curveball. And he got the heater.
Meiser Astores is 8 for 16 to start his season. He's done a terrific job, and because he's swinging the red hot bat, he's getting a lot of playing time early. Blue Jays are looking at Oberholzer for the first time, so you're going to see some guys take some pitches, trying to get a feel for what they're dealing with. Boy, that's that good changeup, just 82 miles an hour. A little turn me over changeup in a great spot.
Got great arm action on it, and it looks like a screwball to the right-handers. Going down and away from them.
Meiser Astores is among the leaders in baseball, getting hits with 2 strikes. He is 6 for 7 so far. That's tied for 4th in all of baseball. 6 of his 8 hits have come with 2 strikes. Down in the dirt.
6 for 7 and you're 4th. Wow.
Just for the number of hits. How about this one? The leader with 9 2-strike hits in all of baseball. Former Blue Jay Emilio Bonifacio. He is 9 for 14 with 2 strikes.
Never would have guessed that. Never would have guessed that. Good for him. He's off to a great start.
Full count, 2 outs. 1-1 ball game. We're in the bottom of the 2nd inning. High fly ball to right. L.J. Hose, the right fielder, has it measured. Oberholzer retires the side in order. 3 up, 3 down with a couple of Ks.
Jays on Sportsnet. Brought to you by the 2014 Honda CR-V. Honda, proud to be the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Beautiful CN Tower right next door to the Rogers Center. Gorgeous afternoon here. Looks like spring might be off in the distance, not too far away in Toronto. Warming up a bit, and some of that snow is starting to disappear. Mark Burley in a 1-1 game. There's that first pitch in there to the leadoff man, Robbie Grossman, the left fielder. Grossman is one of 5 switch hitters the Astros have on their roster. Well, that's a benefit, isn't it? Have switch hitters that you can put out there, and really gives you so much more versatility and flexibility.
Yeah, it makes it tough for the opposition, the manager, late in the ball game. When you want to go righty versus a righty, lefty, lefty, something like that. Advantage the team that has switch hitters on the bench, and Houston has 3 of them.
Carlos Corpora and the catcher Dexter Fowler, who's still bouncing back from a stomach virus. Burley wanted that inside pitch, didn't get the call. And Marwin Gonzalez, all switch hitters on the pine tonight to start the game. They also have a left-handed hitter in Mark Grouse. Line to Jonathan Diaz. Hit hard, but right at him. One down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. He's got an update. Felix Doubront lasted just 2 2/3. There's a fair ball. Jose Altuve is 2 for 2. This is extra bases. Around the bag at first, he jogs into second. The second baseman has a single and a double in 2 at-bats.
And what has he seen? 2 pitches? Both times up there. He is up there hacking away against Mark Burley. He is able to keep this ball fair right past Brett Lawrie and down into the corner. Brett Lawrie can't come up with it. It's extra bases.
Altuve, just 23 years old, takes his lead at second. Jesus Guzman had a first pitch single into center. Boy, Burley and Navarro are certainly going to have to switch gears midstream. Make a better pitch on that first pitch, especially at the top of this batting order.
Yeah, they are up there swinging away. Maybe throw change-ups early in the count.
Ball on a strike. That's the beauty of Navarro behind the plate. He can switch gears as he did with Drew Hutchison in his first start against Tampa Bay. If a lineup's not doing what you expect, you've got to change pace. That's the beauty of experience. He handled Hutchison very well in his first start. Eric Kratz was behind the plate in Hutchison's second start, and he struggled.
And he used his fastball in that start down in Tampa, and they just kept going to it. He needs that pitch right there, and it looks like it's a strike.
Yeah, it sure does look like it's a strike. It has the top of the strike zone for sure, and it looked like it hit the corner as well. 3-1. You got to be careful. Guzman's got a little pop. No reason you can't start with a fresh count. He didn't give him a good pitch. Backed off on that changeup. Jason Castro, the catcher, is on deck. Castro hit into a double play to end the first. Got it. All the way back, and he strikes out Guzman. That's the first strikeout of the night for Mark Burley.
Followed up a changeup with a fastball. It was only 85 miles an hour, but it might have been a lot faster coming off that changeup. You see, that ball is by Guzman at just 85 miles an hour.
That's the beauty of baseball. He can blow it by you at 85 because he set it up so effectively. Jason Castro, the catcher. Castro was the Astros MVP a year ago. Goes after that first pitch. Castro set many offensive Astro records for the catching position. And the most doubles behind the plate, 35 doubles. He had 18 home runs. Scored 63 runs. That's to a record for an Astro catcher. He also set the mark for extra base hits with 54. Hit hard. Nice one hopper right to the second baseman. And Mark Burley gets out of it. He's able to strand out Altuve at second. We'll go to the bottom of the third. It's tied up at 1. Blue Jays will wrap up this series against the Houston Astros. The game time is 7:07 p.m. That Thursday is the first Blue Jays Grand Slam combo game of the season. Grand Slam combo includes 1 ticket to the game, a hot dog, nachos, popcorn, and peanuts, plus an apple and a soft drink, and it all comes for just $39. So if you want to make sure you got a ticket for that Grand Slam combo feature, call the Blue Jays at 416-341-1234. You can always get your tickets by logging online at BlueJays.com. 3-game series against Houston. They won't play again until August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down in Houston at Minute Maid Park.
Oh, it should be nice and steamy
perfect,
by then.
Yeah. You won't even have to take your iron. You just walk outside and your clothes will be devoid of any kind of wrinkles. Number 9 hitters, Jonathan Diaz. Jonathan's had a nice start to his season after he got a call up after Jose Reyes went on the DL. He's played well in the field and come up with some key hits. He's got 3 RBIs.
Yeah, he hasn't given away 1 at bat either. A lot of times you'll see young players come up here for the first time and they might be intimidated a little bit or give away at bats. He hasn't done that. He has had good at bats.
He waves at that changeup, and that's the pitch. You can bet Kevin Seitzer's having a few meetings over on that bench. Hey, he's going to throw you that changeup. Let's look for something away. Threw it again.
His is, excuse me, Buck, a little bit harder than Mark Burley's, but the same effectiveness from a left-hander. His has been about 82 miles an hour. Burley's has been about 79.
2-2. So the leadoff man reaches base. Good start for the Blue Jays here. Diaz hit by the pitch. That'll turn the lineup over.
You can see him peeling off that elbow pad for that reason right there. Ball tracking right in. Hits him right in the elbow. Put that pad on there and you can see why he wears it.
Did that pretty effectively. Kind of looked like he was trying to get out of the way when he wasn't. So he's aboard. That's what you want from your number 9 guy. Get on base, turn it over, let the big guys take over. And here's one of the big guys, Melky Cabrera. 1-1 ball game. Blue Jays second time through the order now. Let's see if they have a little bit more information to put to use against Oberholzer. Melky's homered in 3 straight. Oberholzer not real sure about that last pitch. He steps off, wants a new set of signs. Melky grounded out to third his first time. 1-2. 91 miles an hour on the fastball. See Castro looking into the dugout. That's not the pitch selection as much as it is controlling the running game. Broken bat. Altuve to VR, back to first. A nifty double play, and that erases that leadoff man reaching. Boy, that was a good pitch right in on the label of Melky Cabrera, and they turned a 4-6-3 double play.
Not much left of his bat after that swing. He threw him a changeup, a fastball, and then a breaking ball. He got himself the double play. Nice turn in the middle of the diamond. Watch, breaking ball. He collapses and shatters the bat. Not much left of that thing.
So each team has a double play turn tonight. Blue Jays got one in the first, and the Astros here in the third. Adam Lind lined out sharply to the left fielder his first time up. Lind batting in the 2 spot tonight. Hits it hard, but the defensive shift is perfect. VR over on the right side of the bag. Blue Jays go down in order into third. We've played 3 complete here at Rogers Center. It's a 1-1 game. On the Blue Jays, John Gibbons. And John, your ball club's getting their first look at Brett Oberholzer tonight, but you've seen him in the past. How similar does he look tonight than what you saw back in Double-A?
Yeah, you know, Buck, same guy. You know, what he's got is he's got a really good changeup, you know, and you know, he's able to keep the ball down, and he's mixing it up on us very well tonight, but he's got that big difference, almost a 10-mile-an-hour difference on that fastball and that changeup. And guys that can do that, they're real tough. So we got to maybe sit on one of them, and when we get it, can't miss it.
The way he's swinging the bat right now, Gibby, would you like to see Jose up there every inning?
I don't care if he's not swinging it. You like to see him up there every inning.
What's he doing up there? What's he doing at the plate?
Well, yeah. First off, yeah, everybody knows he's a good hitter. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. You know, and he can burn you deep anytime that bat's moving. So, but he's locked in right now. And the big part is, you know, he's not. I mean, he's a little bit. I mean, he's got a violent swing, but he's keeping it for the most part under control.
Gibby, thanks for your time.
Okay, man.
That's John Gibbons is joining us from the dugout, as he will every home game on Tuesday night. Hey, Chris Carter had an opposite field double. His first time up, came around to score. Ball and a strike. His double came with 2 strikes. He just flared it down the right field line. Blue Jays in the outfield playing up the middle, basically. Off speed is effective as he was way out in front.
They pounded him in last time, and I think you have to do that. He's a big guy. He likes to extend those arms, extend that back, get it out there. I think you could show him fastball inside and then throw a curveball or a changeup to get him for a strikeout.
Full count. Carter certainly has some power. He mentioned his 29 home runs a year ago. Drives this ball to center, and this is going to get down and go all the way to the wall. Rasmus plays it off the wall. Carter at second base with his second consecutive double. This was a ringing double to center.
Well, if you're the Astros, you're saying that's more like it. That's the double that you want to talk about, not the flare to right field. That, again, out in front was that pitch. Too much of the plate. Got to get him tight. You got to tie him up. Got to keep that ball in the inner half. Shows you the type of power. He short ups the wall in right center field without a stride.
That's his third double of the season already. Check that. That's his fourth double of the season. Came in with a pair of doubles. Has 2 more tonight. L.J. Ho's had an effective at bat last time. A swinging bunt right out in front of home plate. Pushed Carter from second to third. One thing that you have to do if you've got a young club like Houston, you have to emphasize that team approach. Take advantage of a leadoff double. Bo Porter and his coaching staff constantly trying to emphasize the little things. That's a ground ball. Carter's got to hold it short. Diaz to first, 1 down. Guess Carter couldn't advance. That ball was in front of him, and he stays put at second. He's still in scoring position.
And to pick up on that point that you're just talking about with young players, they made some mistakes in yesterday's ball game down in Houston. Some base running mistakes. They threw a couple of balls to the wrong base, and Bo Porter says, hey, I know it's going to be a learning process for our young team, but you can't do that. You can't make those kind of mistakes here at the big leagues.
L.J. Hose ran around second base on what he expected to be a 6-3 putout. Eric Eibart, the shortstop, didn't throw it, just held on to it and tagged him out. This is popped up down the right side, and Encarnacion with a long run makes the catch. Good concentration by Double A over near the wall, running away from the diamond. He's able to make the catch. Those 2 good outs after a leadoff double.
Hey, Edwin Encarnacion is a good athlete. You know, you don't make this type of play right here at first base. Remember, he's playing to pull with Dominguez at the plate. He goes over there, runs it down, and then has the wherewithal to think about Carter trying to tag up and advance and gets the ball back into the infield quickly.
So now there are 2 outs. Carter is still at second. After a leadoff double, Alex Presley had a single to left his first time up. The Astros have 6 hits so far. Altuve has a pair. Carter has a pair. Presley and Guzman, the others. 2 outs. Throw to second base, and Carter gets back in. Navarro and Diaz put on that pickoff, sensing that Carter was trying to get a little extra lead with 2 outs.
Yeah, you do that with 2 outs trying to score. The outfield is not very deep. This is a set play between the catcher Navarro and the shortstop Diaz. Hey, you throw it there, I'll be there. Just be ready.
2-0.
Maybe you keep that runner a little bit closer to the bag.
Yeah, after that throw, you would imagine Carter will be a little less aggressive. And if you can cut down his lead at second by a couple of feet, that'll give you a chance to throw him out at the plate. Two balls and a strike. Pulled on the right side. Astros makes another fine defensive play. Meiser has helped out Burley twice already tonight. So the Astros waste a leadoff double. Can't do a thing with it. Blue Jays are flashing the leather early here at Rogers Center. Davidi on Sportsnet.ca. He's recently posted a preview of the Jays minor league teams, and he joins us now to update us on that minor league prospect. Talk about, first of all, the top team, the AAA team. Of course, we know a lot of those guys, but who's gotten off to a good start in AAA?
Well, Marcus Stroman is a guy that everyone's going to be keeping an eyes on. And Buffalo's had a bit of trouble with rain in the early going, and they haven't been able to get as many games in as they might like. But, you know, Stroman was okay in his first time out, and the Blue Jays are going to be looking for him to really just maintain what he accomplished during spring training. He's described as a fully formed pitcher who's kind of just waiting for an opportunity.
What's the plan? Starter or reliever?
Right now, starter, until he shows that he can't be a starter. And, you know, the upside that he has, or the potential he has to be as a starter, would be great for them, because he's got that, he's able to hold that mid-90s into the late innings. And if you can get that kind of power arm into your rotation, you'd absolutely love to take it.
Jose Bautista fouls off the 0-2 pitch. For the first time in a number of years, the five-man rotation at AAA Buffalo is impressive, because they're kind of young and it's a lot of promise there.
Right, and this is something that they didn't have last year. They were relying on veterans like Ramon Ortiz and Dave Bush and guys of that ilk. So behind Stroman, you've got Sean Nolan, who's a legitimate prospect that the Blue Jays think is going to take a step forward as he builds up a bit more strength that he didn't have last year because of a hip injury. They've got Ricky Romero. They've got kind of blanking.
Sean Nolan. Jenkins.
Yeah, and so they've got a bit of a group there. Kyle Drabek, who had a good start the other day.
Bautista hits this one, but it's going to hook into the seats. We'll help you out here, Shai, and I couldn't remember all five of them either, but we got a little help here for you.
Right, and Drabek had a good outing the other day. He had a bit of a rough start, but was able to get up to it. The Blue Jays noticed a bit of an elevation in his velocity, which is something that they were excited about. But the key for him is going to be his command. We saw that during spring training, coming and going in and out. And if he gets some consistency with that, then he can certainly become a factor for this team.
Yeah, just one walk in his five-inning outing, the second time out. So let's go to Double-A. And, of course, everybody has their eyes on Aaron Sanchez in Double-A.
Right, and he took a significant step forward during spring training. And there was some debate over whether he should start in AAA or whether he'd go back to Double-A. And what the Blue Jays ended up doing with him is deciding that they'd like him to start the year in Double-A and really just plow through, or they hope plow through the opposition for about a month or so and then reevaluate things. So he got off to a good start in his first outing, one run over 5 innings, had some strikeouts. He's pitching a game tonight. They'll be keeping a close eye on that. And if he continues to really dominate the competition, then you can see a quick promotion of Buffalo, and it's a stone's throw to the Blue Jays from there.
Well, you mentioned that he took a big step this year. That ball's fouled by Encarnacion. What has he done to take that step?
He's gotten a bit better with his fastball command, and they would still like to see a bit of work on that. That's one of the finishing touches they'd like to see from him as well. They'd like to see better and more consistency with the breaking ball. Also, if he has those two elements along with the changeup, then he's got an opportunity to be completely dominant up here.
His battery mate is A.J. Jimenez in Double-A, and of course he's been talked about for a number of years. How do they see Jimenez and his progress to this point?
Well, he actually just ended up on the disabled list on yesterday. He hurt his hamstring on Sunday. He'd been off to a good start with the bat. And for him, he really hasn't had a lot of reps. I mean, he's missed a lot of time because of the Tommy John surgery on his elbow and the subsequent issues that he's had with that. Struggled through it last year. He probably would have been a September call-up if healthy. So he's a guy that the Blue Jays would very much like to see play and get some reps and get some at-bats. But he's someone that they feel confident enough in his defensive abilities that if he needed to, he could be up here in a pinch.
Shai Davidi has joined us in the booth, and he has written a great article about the Blue Jays prospects. You can find it at sportsnet.ca. And he will break down all of the various teams that are underway right now, getting a start to their season. Blue Jays have some prospects, and there are some names, and some of the popular ones we know about, but who are some of the hidden gems that you have reported on in this article?
Well, you know, let's look at Double-A. There's two guys who become really interesting to the organization in the last few months, and one of them is infielder Andy Burns, and he's someone who's got some pop. They like the bat. And they're going to move him around the diamond into the outfield corners as well to see if they can turn him into a super utility man. Basically, he's a guy without a position right now because they don't know how he fits into the puzzle longer term. But they think the bat's going to play. So as long as the bat continues to play, he's someone they're going to take a look at.
I saw him hit in spring training. He could hit.
Exactly.
He looks like a second baseman for me, an offensive second baseman. Think Jed Jerko from San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bigger guy, and he's definitely going to be getting some reps at second base, and that's interesting because second base is a position where they don't have a long-term answer. And if he could develop into a guy they can use there, that would be a big help for them.
I'll give you a couple more names he reminds me of. Jeff Kent and Ryan Sandberg. He's got that kind of build and that kind of upside. Just to update you both on Aaron Sanchez, through 5 innings tonight, he's allowed 5 hits, 2 earned runs, walked a couple, and struck out 3. He's leading 4-2 and has thrown 84 pitches. So another good outing for Aaron Sanchez. Encarnacion with the 1-out walk. Yonder Navarro had a fielder's choice his first time up. Shai, what else can you tell us about your article and some of the guys that we haven't really seen a lot of yet?
Sure. Well, the big prospect team really is single A Lansing. And
Yonder Navarro hits one to left, and Encarnacion's getting the wave. Here's the throw from Villar, the shortstop. It's offline, and Navarro's going to scamper back to second. The Blue Jays have taken the lead. Alex Presley got a little too close. That ball bounced over his head and allowed Encarnacion to score all the way from first on the RBI double.
Boy, that's the
Navarro.
thing you see when teams come in here playing on this turf. It can get spongy, it gets bouncy, it takes crazy hops, and if you're not used to it, you're going to have problems with it. Off the end of the bat, and Grossman, the left fielder, got a little bit too close, and you can see he just can't keep that ball in front of him. Goes all the way to the wall. Louis Rivera aggressive with Encarnacion, and he scores easily. You see Navarro, big wide turn, and there's nobody backing up at second base. That ball squirts by the left fielder all the way to the wall, backed up by Presley, and the Blue Jays take the lead.
Navarro with 4 ribbies already this season. That ties him with, excuse me, now he is 1 behind Bautista, who is homered tonight. He's got 5.
You were
talking about Lansing.
yes.
And that's where you say the most prospects are. And, of course, that has been the focal point of this organization for the last couple of years.
Right, and this is a group that they're really excited about, and there's a tier of pitchers there that are right behind Sanchez and Stroman in terms of guys who they have huge upside. Now, the attrition rate is obviously very high when they're that low, but it's interesting. They're going to bring these guys along the way they did with the Lansing 3, the Aaron Sanchez, Justin Nicolino, and Noah Syndergaard, in terms of piggybacking them. And, you know, one pairing is going to be Chase DeYoung and Adonis Cardona, 2 very hard-throwing guys who they believe have some upside. Cardona's already touching 98. 2 other guys, Jairo Laborde and Alberto Tirado. They're also going to be another pairing. And again, guys who are 19, mid-90s. At this point, it's still building up volume, building up the endurance for these guys. But if they can be factors, that's going to be huge for them.
What do you mean by piggyback? Tell the people at home what you mean by that when they throw 2 starters on the same day.
Right. What they're doing to prevent or to gradually build up their workloads is that they pair 2 starters together to get 2-3 innings a game. And what they do is they alternate. So one guy's starting, one guy's relieving. And they take turns so that somebody's always getting the chance to get a win every once in a while, so they're not always tagged with losses. And this prevents their pitch counts and their innings counts from getting too high over the course of the year.
With the thought being that they're just 19 years old, that they're still growing into their bodies.
Right. And not only that, but you want to slowly and gradually, at that age, you don't want to have guys jump more than 25% more innings over the previous year.
High fly ball to right. L.J. Hose coming in near the line. Navarro went halfway. He'll return to second base. Well, that is one of the bigger arguments in all of baseball, whether or not you're protecting them or hindering their development.
Right.
And when you have guys that don't have enough innings or don't take a regular turn in a rotation, I personally think that you're retarding their development.
Yeah, and that's really the argument. And people will point to this data to support this argument, point this data to support that argument. Ultimately, nobody really knows. And if someone had all the answers, we wouldn't see this wide array of arm injuries that are plaguing Major League Baseball pitchers. It's just, it's a fact of life that the human body is not designed to throw a ball 90+ miles an hour multiple times every 5 days.
You got to throw it like Mark Burley.
That's right. If only he could be cloned, teach him to pitch as fast too.
Yeah, you throw it 84 miles an hour and you pitch your whole life and never miss a start.
That Lansing team is basically the Blue Field team from last year, isn't it?
Right.
Had a lot of success.
Right. Then they've graduated 2 other guys, position players, to keep an eye on: first baseman Matt Dean and third baseman Mitch Ney. And those 2, along with Rowdy Tellez, who's someone lower down in the system, is going to be in short season ball, are really the 3 premier potential power hitters that they have in the system. Mitch Ney is really interesting because he's already showing good discipline and good command of the strike zone as a guy who's willing to take a walk, a guy who won't swing at bad pitches. And certainly, you think of Edwin Encarnacion.
Bobby Rasmus hits a high fly ball into right center. LJ Hose gets there. Shai Davidi, thank you so much. Appreciate all your upside. And we will make sure we remind people to log on to sportsnet.ca.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Blue Jays take a 2-1 lead. Now it's time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zorn. We just heard from Shai Davidi talking about the Buffalo Bisons, and we want to remind you that the future Blue Jays are just across the border. The Pawtucket Red Sox will be in Buffalo April 10th through the 13th to take on the Bisons. Then the Louisville Bats, April 26th through the 29th. For tickets, visit bisons.com and order your tickets. You can go down there and see some of the future Blue Jays. You can also see some of the former Blue Jays, Ricky Romero and Kyle Drabek, Chad Jenkins, all in the starting rotation. And Sean Nolan, the left-hander, starting to make some dramatic strides and make his way toward the big leagues once again.
Juan Francisco, the Blue Jays just picked him up. He had a big game the other day there.
A couple home runs, big power hitter. So Blue Jays have taken a 2-1 lead. The Astros about hit the Jays 6-3, but the Jays lead in the category that counts. Jonathan Villar, the shortstop, flied out to right his first time up. Villar is just 22 years old. Good-looking young player, and boy, you put a couple of guys up the middle like Altuve and Villar, you could be set for a number of years.
Except when you have the #1 pick in the draft coming also from just a couple of years ago.
Carlos Correa is the player that Pat's talking about, but as we heard from Bo Porter, he said, I don't want to mention those guys. Not just yet. 2 Hopper to third. Rory guns across the diamond one. They have the top-rated farm system in baseball, according to a couple of different publications, and Carlos Correa, the top position player. Mark Pell, #1 pitching prospect out of Stanford University. He was the #1 pick 2012 by the Pittsburgh Pirates. And given what the Pirates did last year, maybe he wants to rethink that.
Go right back there. I'll tell you what, he'll get to the big leagues a lot quicker in the Houston organization. Baseball America does a thing. The top 50 players 25 years and under, 25 years old and under, and the Astros have that Correa kid, Carlos Correa. He is ranked the 22nd. He's only 19 years old. In low A ball right now.
He's from Puerto Rico, and he's a good-looking two-way player, offensively and defensively. They also have George Springer in the minor leagues. All Springer did a year ago was he stole 37 bases, or hit 37 home runs and stole 45 bases. Nearly a 40-40 season in the minor leagues. 3-1. Ball 4. Robbie Grossman takes a one-out walk. Well, the Astros have a young foundation. You see the average age of their hitters 25.8, pitchers 26, and the payroll just $44.5 million. That's the last in the major league. So obviously they have some room to spend money. But I like their approach of building the foundation with homegrown players. Let them grow together, understand how you lose, and then understand how you win together. And then when the time is right, they'll have some money to spend on free agents.
And where does that start? I think in the minor leagues. You win together in the minor leagues. You come up. They're called your guys. The guys that you signed, developed, and you're going to win with.
Altuve lifts it into center. That's going to drop. He's 3 for 3. Rasmus aware that ball's going to bounce. Did a nice job of anticipating the high bouncing ball off the turf and keeps Altuve to a single. But he's got 3 of them already.
He's got a nice easy swing. Got a very small strike zone. And tonight, swinging it.
Jose Altuve led the major leagues with hits in September. He had 41 hits last September. All the while his team was losing 15 straight to wrap up the season. I mean, that's tremendous focus.
Yeah, 41 hits, 357 batting average.
Jesus Guzman has a single and he struck out. I mean, that's hard to do, to have that kind of month offensively when your team is falling around you. They lost their last 15 games of the season. Oh, and 1. 0-2 now with the foul ball. Blue Jays got a double play in the first to get out of a jam. Mark Burley, he understands how to use his defense. Astros has made 2 good plays in the field already tonight. Jonathan Diaz teamed up on that 4-6-3 double play that ended the first. 0-2. Burley hasn't had that real liberal strike zone working in his favor tonight.
Yeah, he hasn't had the corners called, and he hasn't had that high strike called. That last one looked like it might have been a high strike that he was getting down in Tampa.
So far tonight, the Astros are 0 for 7, batting with runners in scoring position. There it is, strike 3. Guzman fooled by the breaking ball. He has struck out twice.
Tough to give up on a breaking ball like this, and that cuts the middle of the plate for a big strikeout.
Boy, again, a pivotal pitch, and he catches a hitter looking. Esmail Rogers is throwing. That's kind of unusual. But obviously, we're not privy to the same information that John Gibbons has.
Castro has had 2 very good at-bats against Mark Burley. He grounded into a double play to end the first inning, that hit a hard ball right at the second baseman his last time up. And the guy behind him, Carter's got a couple of doubles.
Breaking ball missed downstairs. It's a ball and a strike. Burley went 8 2/3 in his season debut. That's the longest start of the season to this point. Felix Hernandez threw 8 1/3. Chris Tillman of the Orioles threw 8 1/3. But Burley has the longest start so far.
And he came a couple of inches from a complete game.
literally a couple of inches. A line drive tipped off Brett Lawrie's glove. It would have been the third out and a complete game shutout to start the season.
And that would have been the first time in Blue Jays history, the start of the first time through the order of a season through a complete game shutout.
1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 on. Blue Jays have a 2-1 lead. Strike 3 call. Jason Castro didn't like the call of the home plate umpire, Mike Estabrook. But now the Astros are 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Mark Burley gets a good call on that low strike. And has you covered. Manager John Gibbons joins the Jeff Blair Show every Thursday morning, only on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. And there's Jerry Howarth and Joe Siddle, Mike Wilner, and the producer Tom Young down there in the Sportsnet 590 Fan radio booth, bringing it all to you over the radio waves. And every Thursday morning, you can hear John Gibbons join Jeff Blair on 590 The Fan. Meiser Astros will lead things on. Astros flied out to right field his first time up. Brett Oberholzer. Oberholzer is trailing 2-1, but he's held the Blue Jays to just 3 hits. It's not unlike his month of September last year. He went 1-4 in 5 starts in September. One hop right to Altuve. He has it, and that's the first out of the bottom of the 5th. But Oberholzer, in those 5 starts, had a 1.95 ERA and a 2.10 opponent's batting average. So he was doing everything he was supposed to do. Just couldn't get any run support. Ended up with a 1-4 record in September.
And a good ERA also. Just couldn't score many runs.
Shortstop Jonathan Diaz. He was hit by a pitch in the 3rd, erased on a double play ball.
He moved to the rotation at the end of July last year and had one of the best walks to innings pitched ratio in all of baseball. 5th best in the American League, and you can see why when he's painting on that outside corner with that fastball.
Well, anytime you got a chance to take a young minor leaguer out of the Braves system, if he's a pitcher, you're going to consider it. They've been terrific over their last several decades of developing pitching. And Oberholzer came out of the Braves system. Bo Porter, you mentioned this is his 2nd year at the helm of the Astros. Porter is 41 years old. He grew up in New Jersey. Ground ball off the end of the bat. Gobbled up by Altuve. 2 ground ball outs here in the 5th. Well, Porter was a heck of a two-sport star. In fact, he played football at the University of Iowa under the great football coach Hayden Fry. And a lot of his attributes playing under Hayden Fry. Two outs. Melky Cabrera for 2 so far. Pops this one up. Could be a quick inning for Oberholzer. Cabrera pops up on the first pitch, and the inning is over. Just 7 pitches required for Oberholzer. Now it's time for the Home Hardware Cleanup Crew, brought to you by Natura. Home Hardware's exclusive line of safe, environmentally friendly cleaning products. Big Comfort Green chairs in the TD Comfort Zone are folks enjoying a seat upgrade, courtesy of TD. Welcome to the ballpark, and hope you're enjoying the game. While across the diamond over in the Jays Care Community Clubhouse are guests from Easter Seal, Ontario. And we're waving at you too, folks. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and we hope you too enjoy the ball game. Chris Carter, he's had a hot night at the plate. This time that curveball is hit right to Brett Laurie at third base. They retire Chris Carter for the first time tonight.
Tried to mess with his timing, but he stayed back on that one nicely. And you know what? That makes up for that double that he hit down the right field line his first time up.
It always evens out, doesn't it? That's what they say. He had a bloop double down the right field line in the second. He hit that ball hard, but right to the third baseman. L.J. Ho's the right fielder. Ho's now 24 years old. He grew up in Maryland, and he actually got to the big leagues with the Baltimore Orioles, his hometown team. He's got himself a base hit. They're going to have to hurry to cut it off. Rasmus gets over in the alley and cuts it off. Hustles it back to the diamond to keep Ho's to a long single.
Ball is elevated just a little bit, and an inside-out swing. Didn't hit it hard enough to get it by Rasmus, which is a good sign right there. Gets it back, keeps the double play in order. Now Deanna Navarro is going to go out. This might be just to buy some time.
Yeah, exactly. You see now they switch from Esmiel Rogers to Steve Delabar. Bob Stanley, the bullpen coach, watching Delabar get loose. So Navarro, he knows what's going on. Houston, they've got 8 hits against Burley, and John Gibbons got the signal that Delabar is ready. He's not going to waste any time. Houston's been swinging the bat well against Burley tonight. The difference in the ball game is the fact that the Astros have gone 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. And Burley having a laugh with Deanna Navarro. He says, I don't know what it is, Skip, but they're all over me tonight. But he leaves with the lead. Looking for the bullpen to close it out. Steve Delabar will be the first out of the pen. He'll take on Matt Dominguez when we come back. Gibbons shakes the hand of Mark Burley for the job well done. He leaves with the Blue Jays ahead 2-1. He goes 5 1/3. Turns things over to the bullpen. First out, Steve Delabar making his 4th appearance.
And he was great his last time out 2 days ago against the Yankees. 3 up, 3 down with a strikeout.
Well, John Gibbons, you know, people think managers just arbitrarily pick the reliever they want to come into the game, but this is as good as it gets. Gibbons has got the powerful Delabar following Mark Burley, and that's a quick turnaround for the Astros hitters. You go from an 84-mile-an-hour fastball to a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and it's tough to switch gears so quickly.
That's all part of managing, right there. Recognizing that, where you are in the lineup with the right-hander up, and he's got some power, Dominguez.
On the ground, but foul. Delabar quickly ahead, 0-2.
You know, I think Gibby also realizes that Mark Burley didn't have his A game tonight. 8 hits already, and they've left 6 runners on already here in the 6th inning. He says, hey, I got the lead right here. I've had an off day yesterday. I've got a rested bullpen. Let's go ahead and use the pen and see if we can finish out this ball game.
0-2 trying to go upstairs, and Dominguez is late on that fastball. That last pitch at 94 miles an hour. 10 miles an hour harder than Burley's fastball tonight.
Turn it up a notch.
Delabar pitched on Sunday at a 1-2-3 8th inning of relief, including a strikeout. 0-2. There goes the runner. It's a little looper, and it's going to drop foul. Hose was off on the pitch. Houston, they are 5 for 5 in stolen bases this season. Last year, they ran a lot, but they didn't have a very good success rate. They just had a 64.3% success rate. You got to be up around 75, if not higher.
Got caught 61 times, which was the most in the major leagues.
Another 0-2 pitch to the third baseman, Matt Dominguez. Strike 3 call. Delabar puts him away with a pitch down and away. 2 down in the inning.
He filled up pitch track, didn't he? All over that strike zone at that time. A little comeback fastball right on the outside part of the plate. You're not going to do a whole lot with that pitch.
I still love the fastball with 2 strikes. Hitters are in a defensive mode. They're trying to put the ball in play, and he blew that fastball by him.
Look at the pitch tracks. He filled that box up, didn't he?
Alex Presley 1 for 2. Lefty batter. Delabar trying to close out the inning. They'll check in on L.J. Hose.
This might be a good time for him to try and run and get into scoring position. If he gets thrown out, Alex Presley, he has led off before with Minnesota last year, a little bit with the Pirates before that.
Hose doesn't have a stolen base attempt yet this year.
He does not have a big lead either at first base.
He was 7 for 8 in steals a year ago, but I agree with you. This is a pretty good time to take a chance. Blue Jays haven't done a very good job of shutting down the running game. They've caught just 1 of 11 attempting to steal. Foul back. You can say that the first 2 hitters Delabar has faced have been late. Pat Listash, the third base coach, looking into the dugout. He's got the sign from the manager. Now he passes them on to the hitter and the base runner.
And just to be sure, the first base coach whispers into his ear. Gotta guess that at some point he's going to get a splitter. And he's going to try and steal.
Not running. Just off the plate outside. First base coach is Tarek Brock. He coached for the Marlins in 2010, coached first base. He was a teammate of the manager Bo Porter's in the Cubs minor league system. 2 balls and a strike. Snap throw to first, and he's back with a dive. Blue Jays have a 2-1 lead. We're in the top of the 6th. The Astros have out-hit the Jays 8-3. But they have gone 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position tonight. 3-1. Switch hitter Jonathan Villar, the shortstop, is on deck. Villar is 0 for 2 so far tonight. HOU's had just a bit bigger lead. He still hasn't been able to reach that artificial surface.
Yeah, I think good base stealers want to put at least 1 foot on the carpet. That lead foot, you can see he's still about a yard off of that.
High fly ball to the outfield. Rasmus, the center fielder, makes the catch. The inning is over. The Astros leave another base runner. So far, they've stranded 6, barely in line for the win. His only blog, updated constantly 7 days a week with breaking news, videos, and tweets. And a one-stop shop for hardcore Toronto fans, only on sportsnet.ca. So check it out. The rundown. Blue Jays clinging to a 2-1 lead. They've been out hit 8-3 by the Astros. And how about Brett Oberholzer? This is his 12th big league start. He's pitched at least 5 innings in all 12 of those starts.
Looks good. Gave up a run in the first inning on the home run to Bautista. Walked the batter in the 4th. He came around to score, but he's looked good.
Adam Lind has lined out and grounded out. Lind hit a ball sharply up the middle to start the 4th, but they used that shift, and Jonathan Villar made a nice play. Tried to check, and he did, according to Gabe Morales down at 3rd. There you see the infielders, 3 of them on the right side of the infield. Matt Dominguez, the lone defender, on the left side.
I'll tell you, they play the deepest infield that we have seen in quite a while. Altuve and Villar, look how deep they are in the outfield.
Well, and they have strong arms. Villar is the shortstop, and he is basically up the middle. He's got the range and the arm strength to make a play from the outfield. Lind is batting 2nd tonight for just the 26th time in his big league career. John Gibbons liked the matchup, given the splits of Oberholzer. He had a good rip at that pitch and lifts it down the left side. That's going to reach the seats out of play.
And he was using Colby Rasmus in the 2-hole for a couple of games. You know, he's not really swinging the bat that well. Let's drop him down. Let's put Adam Lind up there, who has been swinging a hot bat.
The splits, of course, for Oberholzer favor the left-handed hitters against him. Lefties have hit .292 against the Astros lefty, compared to a .215 average for righties. Those are career numbers, albeit just 12 games. Here's the 2-2 pitch. Strike 3 call. Oberholzer uses that fastball and gets his third strikeout of the night. Now it's time for Drive of the Game. It's brought to you by the 2014 Honda CR-V. Honda, proud to be the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
It didn't take long for Jose Bautista to get number 4 on the season already. Ball on the inner half, and he crushes it to left field. Scouting report says that the left-hander likes to crowd righties with fastballs on the inner half, and Jose was waiting for him.
He ambushed the fastball, that's for sure. 4 homers for Bautista. He's been in a groove going all the way back to spring training. And with a power hitter like Bautista, don't worry about the batting average. It's just .250 right now, but he's doing some damage.
Yeah, I don't care about that. I want some production. I'm going to be very careful with him.
Bautista's also racked up 7 walks. He's got protection behind him in the person of Edwin Encarnacion. Edwin has reached base twice tonight with a single and a walk.
Green light. Gotta love it. Took a little something off the fastball there. 89 miles an hour, and it dipped under the bat.
Yeah, that was a pretty good pitch. It wasn't a full-blown fastball for sure. 3-1. There's the changeup. It's a wicked one.
Well, you figure he's going to be around the plate. Got a great 3-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio in his career. So he's going to be around the plate.
Full count to Bautista. Long but foul down the left side. So what's he do now? Young pitchers have a tendency to shy away from a pitch that was just hit hard.
He doubled up on the changeup on Bautista. He's thrown 2 in a row. Does he throw 3 in a row? Josh Zeid is now warming up for the Astros.
Ball foot. Bautista picks up his 8th walk of the season. A 1-out walk. That'll bring Edwin Encarnacion to the plate. The Blue Jays have a 2-1 lead. Edwin starting to come around at the plate. Pat mentioned he had a couple hits in Sunday's game. And when he gets it going, look out.
Well, the Blue Jays feel that Kevin Seitzer felt like he was pulling off the ball just a little bit, especially down in Tampa. In those 2 hits that you were talking about, both of them came to right field. Staying on the ball just a little bit longer, keeping that front shoulder in, and good things are going to follow when you do that.
He had a single and a triple against the Yankees on Sunday. You mentioned he hit both of his base hits to the right side, and Houston, they're trying to encourage him to go that way again. The infield, they have left a gaping hole between first base and the second baseman Altuve.
Take a shot. Take a shot. You've got a left-hander who's turning the ball over. Hit a ground ball to the right side. Jose will go to third. You play first and third, and you play for another run.
You hit a ground ball right at the umpire, and you're going to run for days.
Yeah. Jose Bautista might be able to score from first base.
Ball on the strike. Breaking ball down and in. That's a tough one to hit the other way. Kevin Seitzer has emphasized using the whole field. He said you cannot be a one-dimensional team and only think about pulling and be effective. Upstairs, now 3-1. Gianna Navarro drove in the go-ahead run back in the fourth with a double to left field. Edwin Encarnacion scoring all the way from first base. Bottom of the sixth inning. Ball four. Back-to-back walks after one out.
Boy, that's just good patience at the plate right there. Blue Jays patient. They get a couple of runners on and they force the hand of Bo Porter.
So the walks to the 3 and 4 hitters. And there's the call to the bullpen. So Oberholzer will be out of this ball game. He is in position to lose, allowing just 2 runs on 3 hits. The bullpen when we come back to take on Diana Navarro. Kevin Seitzer goes back to the scouting report to update his hitters on the new pitcher into the ball game. It's Josh Zeid, a right-hander. He's 6'4". He was just called up and joined the Astros here in Toronto as Matt Albers, who probably would be pitching in this situation, but Albers has been placed on paternity leave. His wife is expected to deliver a baby today, so he is back in Houston. And Zeid, a year ago, pitched in 25 games for the Astros.
Came in the Hunter Pence trade from the Philadelphia Phillies. He's got a good fastball. It touches 97 if he needs to be. Above average slider and a fine changeup. Throws downhill and he throws strikes, so be ready.
Diana Navarro with 2 aboard. That breaking ball misses inside. Navarro hit a humpback liner into left field. Well, left fielder Robbie Grossman charged it, and he got too close. The ball bounced over his head. It went for a double, and Encarnacion scored all the way from first. That's the difference in this game. It was back in the fourth. Ball squirts out of the glove of Castro, but Bautista has to hold at second. We're in the bottom of the sixth. Lynn struck out to start the inning. Bautista drew a walk, another walk to Encarnacion, and that's where we are. Blue Jays have managed just 3 hits. Pickoff at second, and they got Bautista. Oh, what a play by Houston. Jonathan Villar, the shortstop, snuck in behind Bautista, and it was a perfect throw. The throw took the glove right to the bag.
Anywhere else, and he's going to be safe, but you could see this happening a couple of pitchers beforehand. Jose off the bag, Villar playing right behind him because of the left-handed hitter Navarro, and that is perfectly executed by the Astros. The daylight play, shortstop goes behind the runner. If that pitcher sees daylight between the runner and the fielder, spin and throw to the bag.
Timing is everything on that play, and they executed it to a T. So Bautista's wiped out of scoring position. Now there are 2 outs. Navarro drives it to the alley. This is going to get down and go all the way to the wall. The ball up against the wall. Encarnacion is coming around from third, and Navarro's done it again. Another RBI double. What a big hit after the pickoff at second. Navarro picks up his ball club with his second ribby of the game.
Boy, does he ever, right there again. Good piece of hitting with a couple of strikes. Take the ball the other way if you need be. There's a lot of RBIs in the opposite field. And Gianna Navarro is going to take advantage of that. Stay back on that one and hit that ball hard to left field. Drive it over there. Blue Jays catch a break when it hits the AstroTurf, bounces up, and does not go out of play. Stays in the ballpark and allowing Encarnacion to come all the way around from first to score.
With 2 ribbies tonight, Navarro has tied Jose Bautista for the club lead with 5. Boy, they're fortunate that ball bounced twice before it got up against the wall. That allowed Encarnacion to score from first. That closes the book on Brett Oberholzer. All 3 runs will be charged to Oberholzer. He allows just 3 hits. It's like deja vu all over again for him. Last September he pitched well and ended up 1-4.
Nothing to show for it but a great earned run average.
Brett Lawrie, ball on a strike. Another big run out there at second base. Blue Jays lead it 3-1. Strike 3 call. Lawrie caught looking at strike 3. But the Blue Jays have taken a 3-1 lead. Deanna Navarro is second RBI double of the night. Will go to the 7th. 3-1 Jays. Navarro, a couple of RBI doubles tonight. He's also helped Mark Burley put himself in a position to go 2-0 early on this season. Third pitcher to work tonight will be the left-hander Aaron Loup as he comes in to start the seventh.
Well, take a look at those numbers right there. Righties Zippo against Aaron Loup. Lefties 400. A great whip. Loopy pitched 3 days ago against New York. He was credited with a hold when he threw just 1/3 of an inning against the Yankees. Good fastball. He's just throwing that curveball in there now. Very effective to go along with a very good changeup.
Navarro reminding the infielders of the possibility of a bunt from Jonathan Villar. And the first pitch strike.
Right side of the infield has shortened up. If he does, he'd probably push it to the right side. You can see Asturis, the second baseman, has crept in just a little bit, as has Edwin first.
Changeup just off the outside corner. Burley goes 5 1/3. He gives up 8 hits, but just 1 run. He's in line for the win. Delabar 2/3 of an inning with a strikeout. Another changeup, back-to-back changeups. Delabar's outing is significant in that he threw just 10 pitches. Had an off day yesterday, so that should keep him in good shape for the possibility of pitching maybe twice more in this series.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see how this one is working in. Brett Cecil in the 8th and Sergio Santos in the 9th. If Aaron Loup can get to the 7th.
Aaron Loup's getting better and better. When we first saw him, he was fastball slider, but primarily throwing fastballs. Then he mixed in his changeup. Well, now it's become fastball, changeup, and a wicked breaking ball.
Yeah.
And he could throw that breaking ball anytime.
Did not have the confidence in the breaking ball last year at all, he said. But now he's throwing it up there and very confident with it.
He jams VR, and he goes down in a heap. Boy, it looked like he fouled that right off his knee. He's got a shin guard down around his ankle. Very concerned manager looking on. Loup will do that because he throws that ball right in on the hands of the right-handed hitters.
He can get it in there. That's what he does here. Watch where this ball hits him. It bounces, and then it looks like it hit him maybe in the calf.
Might be what it did exactly. It hit him on the rebound. Caught him just underneath that left kneecap. Shin guard doesn't help you with that. Another 3-2 pitch. Ball 4. Leadoff walk to the number 9 hitter. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Corey Kluber pitching for the Indians. Tyson Ross started for San Diego. Niger Morgan in center field has gone 2 for 3. What a pickup he's been. He came back from Japan.
Yeah.
And he made that ball club when Michael Bourne started out on the DL. So Robbie Grossman continues to bat from the right side. He's a switch hitter. Blue Jays have turned 1 double play that came back in the first. He's late on that fastball. Bullpen has been a strength of the Blue Jays going back to last season. They've got 2 very good left-handers in Loup and Brett Cecil. Steve Delabar first out of the bullpen from the right side.
Nice. Very nice right there.
Can't get any better than that, can it?
Nope.
94 on the corner at the knees inside.
Now he's got him set up. He's got a couple of ways he could go now. He can double up on that, throw it again. He can backdoor a breaking ball, or he can throw his changeup.
Breaking ball missed inside. Well, you put that inside strike in a hitter's mind, they're going to have a tendency to want to start early. And when you do that, you become vulnerable to the outside pitch, first of all, but especially to the changeup. Outside of first.
You know, Grossman has struggled lately. He's over his last 20. But for me, he looks like he's right on everything. He looks like he's ready to bust out. Hit a hard ground ball his first time up, lined out to the shortstop his second time out up, and then walked last time. He's trying to shoot that ball to right field.
Way outside, not close. Well, I agree with you. It looks like he's getting close to breaking out, but he doesn't want to hear that. He wants to hear some results. You know, he'll go back to the bench and say, hey, man, you're right on everything.
Don't want to hear that. Yeah, so what?
Yeah, I'm 0 for 20. Full count. VR at first, not running. Back-to-back walks. That's not the way you want to start the inning. So 2 aboard, nobody out. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. Big shot of downtown Toronto, not far from Rogers Center. Pete Walker, pitching coach, on the horn to the bullpen.
Birthday boy.
That's right. Happy birthday, Pete. Esmail Rogers, the right-hander. He was up earlier in support of Mark Burley. Now grabs the ball. It shouldn't take him long to get ready. Loop walks the first chew he's faced. Altuve is 3 for 3 already. And there go the runners. And no throw.
Yeah, Blue Jays were playing for the bunt, and there's no way they were going to bunt here. They're down by 2 runs. You've got one of your best hitters, if not the best hitter at the plate. Try and make something happen. You can see Edwin Encarnacion, how close he is. Brett Laurie was pulled in, so there's not going to be a play there.
Now Altuve is 3 for 3. He's their number 2 hitter. Encarnacion knocks it down. He'll get the out. Altuve retired, but a run comes in. Altuve hit it hard again. It's a 1-run game once again.
Productive.
The Astros have gotten that run back.
Yeah, productive at bat right there by Altuve. He almost comes up with a 2-run single, but he accomplishes 2 things. He moves the runner over to third and scores the runner who was at third. Move him over, move him in, stay behind that ball, shoot it the other way. If not for a great play by Encarnacion, we would have been all tied up.
And you have to remember, Bautista got picked off in second base in the 6th inning. And then Navarro got a double. Blue Jays would have had a pair. There's a first pitch strike. Jesus Guzman. Guzman hit a home run on the first pitch he saw this season from CC Sabathia. His first hit as an Astro. A 2-run homer. 0-2. All of a sudden, Luke jumps ahead. Lefty Jason Castro is on deck. This is a big at bat. Guzman stays back and fights it off. Catcher Jason Castro has gone 0 for 3. Set into a double play and struck out.
Guzman can strike out, but you got to get him to chase. Trying to be a little bit more patient this year.
Tying run just 90 feet away. That's tapped up the first baseline, and Navarro will touch it in foul territory.
And he's getting a huge lead over there at third base. I think they're running the contact play here. With 1 out, Grossman can run a little bit. He's getting a big lead. Watch the lead and watch him break. I mean, he is way down the line.
Yeah, he went on contact too, so that suggests that he's going to run anything hit in to fair ground. Cut on and missed. Navarro hangs on to the foul tip. Huge strikeout for Aaron Luke. The Astros now 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position.
Boy, just a great pitch. Looked like a changeup down and away. Third time that Guzman goes down tonight. Down and away. Can't come up with it.
The catcher, Jason Castro. He's taken the collar so far tonight. He's 0 for 3. Breaking ball away. Two for 19 in the early going. Looks like a pretty good pitch.
Sure did. And the strike zone's been very small tonight. Mark Burley didn't get a lot of corner calls or that high strike, and you can see from pitch tracker, it looks like it got a lot of plate.
His fastball has picked up a little more velocity.
That one at 93 and had a little bit of a tail right at the end of it also.
Two balls and a strike. Robbie Grossman at third base. 95. Back-to-back walks to start the inning.
Let's see if he can get out of it. One of them has already scored.
Fly ball center field. This should end the inning. Rasmus makes the catch. Luke keeps the lead intact. One comes in to score. We'll go to the bottom of the 7th. The Blue Jays with a 3-2 lead. Baseball season with MLB.TV. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live or on demand in HD quality. Watch up to 4 games at once with multi-game viewing. Season subscriptions start at $129.99. So visit BlueJays.com today for more details. Heck of a ball game going on here at Rogers Center. The Blue Jays have been out hit 8-4, but they lead the Astros 3-2 as they are set to bat at the bottom of the 7th. And they will face a new pitcher coming in the ball game. The left-hander, Kevin Chapman.
Chapman's got a good arm. They got him from the Kansas City Royals organization. He has already pitched in a couple of ball games already this season. Two-seam sinker, really used the changeup. Left-handers have had trouble versus Chapman in his very young career. He's got a wipeout slider, so keep an eye on that. And wouldn't you know it, first batter he faces is going to be a lefty.
It'll be the bottom third of the Blue Jays order. The left-handed hitting Colby Rasmus, the switch hitter Meiser Astores, and the righty Jonathan Diaz. Blue Jays got a run in the bottom of the 6th, but the Astros got it right back with a run in their half of the 7th. Rasmus is 0 for 2 so far tonight. Breaking ball in there for a strike. This is the first look Rasmus has had at Chapman, and he takes one close. Ball and a strike. Colby, a new haircut. Got it trimmed up, kind of sharp. Boy, baseball players, they're just superstitious, aren't they?
Maybe he got his hair cut to spark something offensively.
I'd have shaved my head if it helped me get a hit.
I would have stood on my head if it would help me.
Colby trying to get aboard. It's a 3-1 count. Takes one right at the knees. It's a full count. Meiser Astores, switch hitter on deck. He's gone 0 for 2 so far. Blue Jays have just 4 hits. Deanna Navarro has 2 of those. A pair of RBI doubles. Rasmus strikes out. That's the first out of the bottom of the 7th.
See why Chapman can be so tough on lefties. He's got that jerky motion and pretty good slider in a good spot.
Astores mentioned 0 for 2, fly out the ground out. Good fastball. He's got a little zip on his heater. That was 95
with some movement on it. Also, I guess if you want to go and get a young arm, call the Kansas City Royals. They got a whole stable full.
Yeah, they can't keep them all. He was drafted by the Royals in the 4th round out of University of Florida. That was back in 2010. He's actually been drafted 3 times. Drafted out of high school by the Tigers. This is popped up over near the Blue Jays dugout. That'll be up the top of the dugout and out of play. Chapman was traded from Kansas City to Houston in March of 2012, right during spring training. He was traded with a player to be named later for the catcher Humberto Quintero and the outfielder Jason Bourgeois.
That's a pretty good trade right there, I think, for Houston. They get a left-hander. They only have one lefty in their pen. And this is it right here.
Chapman had Tommy John surgery while he was at the University of Florida. Strike 3 call. Mike Estabrook looked like he had some doubts about whether or not that was a strike. There was a hesitation, and that's why Astores had a few words for the umpire. Just looked like he wasn't really sure. Watch the timing of the called 3rd strike. Boy, that looks low.
Wow, it does. And Meiser's argument is, hey, I've been standing out at second base all night long. That one is not even close. And you've been calling this a ball all night. Why are you calling it a strike on me now when I have 2 strikes on me?
Two strikeouts to start the inning. Jonathan Diaz, he was hit by a pitch and grounded out to second. That high pitch hasn't been called a strike all night long.
Nope.
But we hadn't seen that low pitch called before that last strike 3 called to Astros. Ball and a strike. That caught the corner. Josh Zide did a good job coming out and getting the pickoff at second and the strikeout, but he gave up the RBI double to Deanna Navongo. So all 3 runs Blue Jays have scored tonight have been charged to the starter, Brett Oberholzer. Navarro has tied Bautista for the team lead in RBIs with 5. Full count.
Well, this is one area that the Astros really wanted to improve on over the wintertime. They wanted to help out their bullpen. Went out and signed some veteran relievers to help them. And Chad Qualls, Matt Albers, you mentioned. Jesse Crane is on that team, but he's on the DL right now.
Ball 4. What an at bat for Diaz after the 2 strikeouts. He turns the lineup over and gets Melky Cabrera to the plate. So Diaz reaches twice tonight. Melky Cabrera 0 for 3 so far. He's got a 7-game hit streak alive. He's homered in 3 straight. His career high hit streak was 18 games back in 2007. He's a ways away from that.
I'll settle for a double right now. I was watching Bo Porter just now. He was telling his outfielders he wants no doubles. So they are very deep in the outfield. He knows how important that run is. You can see him going through some signs right now.
It's a 1-run game. Outfielders near the warning track.
I mean, they're playing as deep as they were when Jose Bautista was at the plate earlier in the game.
Bautista homered in that at bat. Bo Porter needed the nickel defense then. Bautista hit it deep into left center. Melky Cabrera high and deep to left, way back and gone. 4 straight games with a home run for Cabrera. A big 2-out, 2-run homer.
That's huge. The defense plays no doubles, and again, it doesn't matter. Melky Cabrera stayed back on that one and sends it right out of here. Breaking ball. His home runs that he has hit, every one of them have come off the breaking ball this week. 4 straight games, another breaking ball, and he sends it into the seats.
Melky Cabrera has homered in 4 straight games. He's halfway to the major league record. Dale Long, Don Mattingly, and Ken Griffey Jr. have homered in 8 straight games. Cabrera's hit streak extended to 8.
And 2 of those home runs were big home runs late in the game to give the Blue Jays some breathing room.
On Saturday, in a 1-0 game, Cabrera hit a 1-out home run, and then 2 batters later, Bautista hammered a 2-run homer. But what about Jonathan Diaz? He worked for the 2-out walk to get Cabrera to the plate. Diaz has turned the lineup over twice tonight.
Told you, he doesn't give away at bats. He has good at bats. And he didn't panic when he fell behind. He just kept grinding it down. Got the walk.
Adam Lynn. Ball on the strike. Blue Jays using the same formula they used a year ago. The long ball. 2 more tonight. Jays have now hit 10. Breaking ball outside. Bautista is on deck. The appeal to third denied by Gabe Morales.
That's how you lay off that pitch. 2-2. Wipeout slider. And Lindy stayed off of it.
Josh Fields, a right-hander, will probably come in to face Bautista if Lynn can reach. Edwin Encarnacion has scored twice. He's walked and scored in the 4th and in the 6th. Strike 3 call. The fastball ends the inning. Chapman strikes out the side, but a 2-out walk and a 2-run homer have given the Blue Jays a 5-2 lead. Brett Cecil will make his 4th appearance of the season. He's the 3rd reliever to work tonight in support of Mark Burley.
Gaining confidence with that breaking ball. That's been outstanding so far this year. Ryan Goins has come in to play some defense at second base.
So Goins takes over from Meiser Astores. Astores made a fine defensive play behind Burley in the 1st inning. Could have changed the complexion for the entire ball game. Changeup way outside. Quickly ahead, 0-2. Cecil to Chris Carter. Carter is 2 for 3. A couple of doubles, and he lined out to the 3rd baseman. Strike 3 call. Cecil makes quick work of Chris Carter. Melky Cabrera's got 4 home runs, and he's done it from both sides of the plate.
Pitches that are up and off speed pitches, every one of them. 2 from the left side, and then an off speed pitch from CC, and 2 from the right side. There's a big one tonight, right there. Give the Blue Jays a little breathing room in the 7th inning.
Homers in 4 straight games. He becomes the 12th Blue Jay to do that. Jose Cruz has the franchise record. He homered in 6 straight in 2001. The major league record, as we mentioned, is 8 straight games. Dale Long, Don Mattingly, and Ken Griffey Jr. Cecil, after getting the strikeout, has fallen behind L.J. Hools 3-0. Walks him on 4 pitches. Well, we have talked about the strike zone all night long, and the Pitch Tracker is brought to you by Acer, official partner of the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Carter struck out, caught looking at strike 3, and then L.J. Holmes takes 4 wide ones, and he's at first. Matt Dominguez got the Astros on the board. He tied it up back in the second with a sac fly to center. It was a 1-1 game at that point. Blue Jays scored a single run in the 4th, added a single run in the 6th. Houston made it a 3-2 game with a run in the top of the 7th, and Melky Cabrera hit his 2-run shot in the bottom half of the 7th. There's a strike. It's 1-1.
Two hits this year, 2 home runs. He's got some power, so you got to be careful with him.
His RBI on the sac fly, his 3rd ribby of the season. He's just 24 years old. So former #1 pick of the Marlins in 2007. That's a fair ball down the left field line. L.J. Hose is around second. He's going to be stopped at third, and Matt Dominguez has his first double of the season. And this Astro team has got a lot of fight. Dominguez keeps it fair down the third base line.
Hey, they're not going to shut it down. They've got some young players who want to prove that they can play in the big leagues. This isn't like the Astro team last year, that when you got late in the game, you could pitch to them and the game was over. Not this year. They got some fight in them, and they come right back, 2nd and 3rd, and just 1 out. They're going to send a pinch hitter to the plate.
Dexter Fowler did not play in the 4-game series against the Angels because he had a stomach virus. Obviously, he's okay to go here. He takes an inside pitch for a strike. Fowler, I spoke to before the game. He was making his way back from the batting cage. He said he ate for the first time yesterday. He was in the hospital on Friday night with that stomach virus. Taps it out in front of home. Ceasa's going to come home, and they tag out the runner Hose. What a heads-up play by Brett Cisa. He may not have had a play at first base. Porter's going to come out and talk it over with Mike Estabrook.
That's a heads-up play right there by Brett Cecil. You're right. I don't think he would have had a play at the plate on Dexter Fowler. So he comes in and he shovels the ball to home plate to get the only run. Now, we all know what this argument is about right here.
Jerry Lane is the crew chief. He is the first base umpire. And now they're going to go to the review.
Did they give him a lane to slide in the plate?
Well, you could see that's very close. Now, the umpire, Mike Estabrook, calls out Hose, but he was definitely blocking home plate before he had the baseball. And the definition of the rule is that you are to give the base runner a lane. The argument here is going to be that Navarro blocked the path to the plate before he had possession of the baseball.
Yeah, it's not out or safe. It's where the catcher sets up. And the ball actually bounces to Navarro, and he has to move just a little bit into the path of the runner to catch that one-hop shovel. So this is going to be really interesting, I think, the whole season.
Well, and two, both managers are learning about the nuances of this call. Jerry Lane is the crew chief, and here's the play again. Does the throw take Navarro into the baseline, or was he there to begin with? The umpire, in my mind, all he can concentrate on right now is safe or out.
Sure.
He has to make that call first and foremost. But you can see Navarro's position. He's clearly blocking home plate. And by the definition of this rule, the runner could be called safe. And they call him out. Jerry Lane indicated the base runner was out. The ruling was determined in New York. The umpiring crew on the field does not make the determination once it's turned over to the review board in New York.
You know what's going to happen? Every time there's a play at the plate, the umpire, or excuse me, the manager is going to come out and challenge where the catcher was on the throw to the plate.
Well, the umpire's discretion, he can make that call. Manager may request but cannot challenge, and he's just going to go out there and say, hey, I'd like you to review that play. That happens on home runs, home plate collisions, and record keeping, balls and strikes. 2 outs. Jonathan Villar. Did he go around? No, according to Jerry Lane. So now there are 2 down, runners at the corners. The pinch hitter, Dexter Fowler, is at first on the fielder's choice.
Lost in all of that? What a play by Cecil. Heads up.
It was a swinging bunt up the third baseline, and I don't think the left-handing fielder Cecil could have turned and fired to first. The question is, should Hose have held his ground at third? Ball and a strike. Another delayed call and the same reaction from the batter. Mike Esterbrook has had a lot of puzzled looks. Bo Porter encouraging Villar to get past the call. He strikes out. Brett Cecil with a pair of strikeouts in the inning. The Blue Jays maintain their 5-2 lead. Now it's time for Blue Jays Central. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zorn. Watch the Blue Jays on Sportsnet live on your smartphone. Visit RaptorsAnyplaceTV.com/sports to get started. And if you had Anyplace TV, you'd have a chance to see that play at the plate and the subsequent appeal. And now we're going to see a new pitcher into the ball game. It's Josh Fields, the third relief pitcher to work for Houston tonight. He comes on to work the bottom of the 8th.
He's got a good arm. 2 games. He came over as Rule 5 from the Seattle Mariners. He's got a good arm, good fastball, good slider.
Bautista takes strike 1. Houston has out-hit the Blue Jays 9-5, but the Blue Jays lead by 3, 5-2. Strike 2. Both of those pitches appear to be clearly in the strike zone.
They haven't said it, but I think this guy's going to be their closer right here. He projects for me like a closer. Power fastball, power curveball, hard nose, tough. Comes in and throws strikes.
There's the power curveball. It missed downstairs. He had 6 save opportunities a year ago, picked up 5 of those. Bautista got a good fastball to hit. Dexter Fowler entered the ballgame as a pinch hitter for Alex Presley. Takes over defensively, and he had anticipated that he would play tomorrow for sure. And he got a pinch hit at bat here tonight. Created some controversy with that swinging bunt out in front of home. We have been informed by the Jumbotron, they have communication with the review team in New York, and the appeal apparently was safer out. Not necessarily that they were appealing that the catcher was blocking the plate. And in my mind, he was clearly out. Navarro had stationed himself in front of home plate, and L.J. Hose was tagged out before he ever came close to home plate. It was an umpire review. Brett Cesa made a terrific defensive play, flipping it to the catcher. Full count to Bautista. He has homered, grounded out, and walked. Takes ball 4, walks for a second time tonight. A leadoff walk here in the 8th. Well, that's one thing the Blue Jays have done a terrific job of. If they don't get good pitches to hit, they're happy to pass the baton to the next guy.
Bautista's walked twice, and Encarnacion has walked twice tonight.
Jonathan Diaz may have gotten the biggest walk of the night. Came with 2 outs in the 7th to get Melky Cabrera to the plate, who homered. 5 walks for the Jays and a hit batter. Encarnacion's had a perfect night. 1 for 1 with 2 walks. He scored a pair of runs. Edwin had a single to center in his first at bat, then walked in the 4th and scored, walked in the 6th and scored. He had a single and a double on Sunday, the series finale against the Yankees. Excuse me, a single and a triple on that Sunday effort.
Time to pick one out right here.
3-0. You turn him loose?
Sure. Hitting over 200. I mean, he has faced some really tough pitchers the first week of the season. We talked about that already. David Price and CC Sabathia, Pineda, Tanaka, Cobb. I mean, the list goes on and on. You got to count 3-0. Let your big man eat right here.
Bautista. Remember, he was picked off back in the 6th, picked off at second by Josh Zeid. Zeid had entered the ball game with runners at first and second and 1 out. But Bautista was picked up by Deoner Navarro, who delivered a 2-out RBI double. He takes a strike. Sergio Santos appears to be standing by ready in the bullpen. Good rip on a 3-1 fastball.
That's what we've seen from Edwin over the last couple of years. Aggressive in fastball counts, and then they had the ability when he got the 2 strikes to cut a swing down, come up with a big base hit.
Full count, nobody out. Bautista with a short lead at first. There he goes. Fouled straight back over the screen and out of play. Bautista was on the move. We have seen a familiar theme throughout the first 8 games of this season, and that's on defense. All of the 3 clubs we've faced have all exaggerated the defensive alignments, especially on the infield. Here's the 3-2 pitch. There goes Bautista, ball 4. So Fields comes into the ball game and walks the first 2 batters he faces here in the bottom of the 8th. We'd like to welcome those of you from Sportsnet East that have been watching the Senators beat the Islanders. The Blue Jays have a 5-2 lead. Home runs by Jose Bautista in the first, and a big 2-run home run by Melky Cabrera in the 7th. Bautista's 4th of the season. 4th home run for Melky Cabrera, and he has homered in 4 straight games and extended his personal hit streak to 8.
Big home runs late in the ball game. Give the Blue Jays some breathing room.
Gianni Navarro has had 2 RBI doubles. He drove in the go-ahead run in the 4th when he doubled and knocked in Edwin Encarnacion. He also had an RBI double in the 6th. He is 2 for 3 tonight. The Blue Jays GM Alex Anthopoulos felt like the Jays needed an upgrade at the catching position. And Navarro has been a good hitter throughout his career. He's a switch hitter, which is an advantage. But he also has good at-bats. He hit 300 last year in part-time duty with the Cubs.
Very good on-base percentage, and he'll see a lot of pitches. He won't get himself out. And he calls a good game.
Off the plate outside. Blue Jays have managed just 5 hits tonight. But they've walked 6 times and they've had a hit batter.
And how many of them have come around to score? 3 already. 2 more aboard.
Downstairs, good eye. Well, now he's got the count in his favor, and he's had a good night, couple of doubles, and he kind of gets a free shot here.
Yep. Look for one pitch in one area, and you're thinking extra base hits right now. You're not thinking about trying to fillet a ball into the outfield. You're trying to drive it, trying to get it into the gap to score both runs.
Here's the 2-1. High and deep to right, but that's going to stay in the park. Bautista tagging at second. Encarnacion tags at first, and they both hold. L.J. Hose gets the ball back in quickly. First out of the inning.
Just missed it. That was a good pitch for him to hit. He just missed it.
So Brett Lawrie's gone 0 for 3 tonight with a pair of strikeouts. Here's a guy that's in need of a clutch hit. Driven in a run. This would be a big insurance run. Looking ahead to the top of the 9th, it'll be the top of the order for Houston. Grossman, Altuve, and Guzman. Blue Jays lead by 3. Laurie just 3 for 28 on the season. 1 hit and an RBI right now could do wonders.
Boy, all those other outs are forgotten right here. Think back through the middle. This guy throws too hard to think about trying to pull him.
I wouldn't shoot.
Better yet, don't think. Just react. See the ball and just let it go.
Breaking ball lifted to right. Should be an easy play for Hose. He makes the catch. Lori's retired. Hose gets it back in quickly. So now they're 2 down. Colby Erasmus will step to the plate. The Astros have just one left-handed pitcher in their bullpen, and they've already used Kevin Chapman. He came in to pitch the 7th. He struck out the side in the 7th, but he gave up a 2-out walk and a 2-run home run before he struck out Lynn to end the inning. So he's already in and out of the game. This is the pitching coach, Brent Strom, making his way toward the mound. And obviously, we mentioned they don't have a left-hander down there. So this is more about plan of attack than it is making a change. Manager Bo Porter on the bench.
To go over scouting report, he didn't have anybody throwing down in the bullpen. Colby Rasmus is a good fastball hitter. And they're probably going over a strategy right now, what they want to use against them. Look for that first heater from Fields. He'll give you one.
Brent Strom, the pitching coach, was the Astros pitching coach in '96. He's also been the pitching coach for the Royals in 2000 and 2001.
What's he famous for?
And the second Tommy John surgery.
Think about that.
How about that?
It wouldn't have been called the Tommy John surgery if he was #1.
Well, there was a chance it could have been the Sandy Koufax surgery.
That's right.
Hurt his elbow before Tommy John, but Dr. Jobe hadn't been as aggressive early on. Rasmus with 2 aboard and 2 outs. Takes one up and away. Sergio Santos is ready, standing by in the bullpen. You see Rogers also throwing beside him. Another run, and it might be Rogers to pitch the 9th.
Non-save situation.
Rasmus hits it high and deep to right, but it's going to stay in the ballpark. L.J. Hose makes all 3 of the putouts here in the bottom of the 8th, and we'll go to the 9th. The Blue Jays holding on to their 3-run lead, and here comes Sergio Santos with the save on the line. Top of the order for Houston. Fans, the R.A. Dickey Bobblehead Day will take place Sunday, April 27th, when the Blue Jays take on the Boston Red Sox. It'll be a 1:07 start. The first 20,000 fans into Rogers Center will receive an R.A. Dickey bobblehead. For tickets, call the Blue Jays at 416-341-1234. Or go online at BlueJays.com and order your tickets for the R.A. Dickey Bobblehead Day, Sunday, April 27th. Sergio Santos into the ball game. He's picked up a couple of saves already, and he's looking for another here. He's 2 for 2 in that department so far this year.
His fastball's been good. I think his slider has set him apart this year. It's been outstanding here in the early goings.
First pitch is down and in for a ball. Robbie Grossman batting left-handed for the first time tonight. Switch hitter. He is over 2 with a pair of walks. There's a strike that evens it count at a ball and a strike. Santos is the 4th reliever to pitch for the Jays. Delabar, Loop, Cecil, now Santos. Mark Burley in line for the win. He went 5 1/3, gave up 8 hits, a run, walked 1, and struck out 3. Cut on and foul back to the screen. 2-2.
He's got a great arm. Ball moves a lot. You really can't sit on one pitch against Sergio. His slider was great last time out. A couple of strikeouts against the Yankees.
Strike 3 call. Grossman can't believe it, but he'll pack the lumber back to the dugout. Let's see. 8th strikeout for Blue Jay pitching tonight, right at the bottom of the zone.
Yeah, looking for that breaking ball, and he got the fastball. Locked him up right at the knees. Not going to go any lower right there.
Blue Jays bullpen has allowed just 1 hit. Brett Cecil gave up a double to Matt Dominguez, and that's been it. Second baseman Jose Altuve's had a big night. 3 for 4, double pair of singles. He drove in a run with a ground out in the 7th. Ball and a strike. Blue Jays trying to even their season record to 4-4. They'll have 2 more games against Houston before they go out on the road. A 9-game, 10-day road trip. Baltimore, Minnesota, and Cleveland. Here's the 1-1. Strike 2. I don't care who you are. That's a tough pitch to hit.
That is a tough pitch. It's 93, 94 miles an hour. It's right on the outside corner. It's down and away. He's trying to get those batters to reach for it. You can't do anything with it, even if you do try and swing at it.
We call the foul chip. That ball hit the dirt, and that was a nasty slider that Altuve got a piece of. There's the strikeout. Another slider. Back-to-back strikeouts here in the ninth.
Well, you gear yourself up for that fastball. You got to respect it, and then he drops this on you right here. Tough to make any contact with that pitch. Watch the spin and how much it breaks as it heads towards home. It's a great shot right there.
2 down. Mark Krause batting for Jesus Guzman. 0 for 13 to start the season. Looked like it caught the inside corner, but Navarro was set up on the outer part of the plate. Shouldn't make any difference.
No, strike's a strike.
Ball and a strike.
Boy, that's a bad feeling right there. You're down by 3 runs. You're pinch hitting. You have to take a strike. Astros looking for some base runners right there, and you take a heater right down the middle.
Santos has got his old slider back.
Yes, he does. That's what he looked like when he saved 30 games with the Chicago White Sox a couple of years ago.
2011, looking for save number 3 tonight. It'll make a winner out of Mark Burley. Got him. Sergio Santos strikes out the side in the ninth. The Blue Jays win it. Mark Burley goes to 2-0. Melky Cabrera has homered in 4 straight games. Bautista hit his 4th of the season. The Blue Jays win the first of 3 against Houston.
You know, this was about Mark Burley going to the mound, gutting it out, getting into the 6th inning. But John Gibbons realized his pitcher didn't have his best stuff, and Gibby went to the bullpen, pushed all the right buttons tonight, and got himself a W.
Bullpen gave up just 1 hit tonight. Blue Jays win the opener of this 3-game series. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Connected. Coming right up over on Pacific, it's Tigers and Dodgers. Max Scherzer against Dan Hare on 360. It's WWE Vintage. We'll see you tomorrow night. The Blue Jays are 4-4.